Welcome to The Complete Works, an official podcast of FilmBook. The Complete Works is a podcast that delves film by film into the filmography of a Hollywood actor, director, writer, or composer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Complete Works podcast, a film podcast brought to you by FilmBook. My name is Doug Hess. Now, if you're tuning in to Complete Works podcast for the first time, what I do in this podcast is discuss a specific movie from a film actor, actress, director, or composer's career. And currently, I'm working my way through Tom Cruise's career. And in this episode of the Complete Works podcast, I'll be discussing the film Days of Thunder. You can find out more information about the Complete Works podcast episodes on FilmBook. That's film-book.com, or by simply searching the term The Complete Works. If you're listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or another podcast service, please rate and review this episode. If you're listening to this podcast on YouTube, please like our video, subscribe, and consider becoming one of our patrons on Patreons at patreons.com/FilmBook. Your support helps us create more engaging content. And as I mentioned, we will be looking at the film Days of Thunder, starring Tom Cruise, Robert Duvall, Nicole Kidman, just to name a couple that's in the film. Randy Quaid is in there as well. Fred Thompson, John C. Reilly is in there as well. So a lot of a great cast was brought into this. So before we just kind of dive in and talk about this film, for those that haven't seen it, this is a 1990 film, and it's about a young hotshot stock car driver who finally gets his chance to compete at the top level, which is in NASCAR, in terms of that. So let's go ahead and just kind of dive into this film about Days of Thunder. And what we want to do is kind of a little talk about the film and what I thought about the film. So honestly, I felt like this film is in a series of films that we've already talked about that's kind of a copy and repeat type thing. It's an entertaining film. However, we may as well just call it the Tom Cruise picture trilogy, since it assembles a lot of the same elements that we've seen in some of his other movies that we've already talked about. Top Gun, Color of Money, Cocktails, to name a few. And it basically runs him through, in my opinion, the same formula over and over again. You know, parts of the plots are beginning to kind of wear out their welcome, if you will, in this segment with Tom Cruise. However, at the end of the day, this works for Tom Cruise, and it also works for, I think, a lot of film fans, because they want to see Tom Cruise. He's a great actor. Nobody doubts that. It's just kind of a copy, paste, repeat, rinse, do it again type segment. And what I mean by that is, just what I mean is, number one, I'll just kind of go through them in no particular order. Obviously, I just said Cruise is a very talented character. He plays a very young and naive individual that has a very natural talent. Again, I go back with Top Gun. He's a young, talented, good-looking, naive fighter pilot. Same thing we see in The Color of Money. He's a young, naive, good-looking pool player. Cocktail, he's a bartender in terms of that. The second thing, he has a mentor, an older individual who has done it himself and has been there before and knows the talent that it takes and what he sees in order to get to the next level. Again, we see that with Top Gun, the commander of the Top Gun, I'm going blank on his name. We see this with Paul Newman in The Color of Money. We see this again with Cocktail. Always there's somebody, an older mentor that has done it, seen it, has competed in it, whatever the scenario may be, and they are there to help him get to the next level. Something else, we have a superior woman, usually older, taller, more matured than who's playing the Cruise's character. Again, in Top Gun, Color Money, and Cocktails. I don't know why I went blank on that. We see all that. Elizabeth Shue in Cocktails, in terms of that. The next thing we see that he is a master of something, so he's able to take a craft and really master it. Again, flying, pool, and bartending. There's always an area or an arena, if you will, that his character gets tested with. So it's up in the skies with planes, with Top Gun. We see the same thing that happens with The Color of Money at the pool table, in terms of that. And so he not only has to get tested, but he also has to have some type of specialized knowledge that allows it to work, in terms of that. So, there's also an enemy. We see that that has to carry this through. So when we see with Top Gun, we have Iceman, but we also have the Russians. When we get to The Color of Money, he's also with the pool. He's kind of fighting himself. He's also fighting other sharp, talented pool masters, Paul Newman as well. And then obviously in Cocktail, he is fighting his partner, in terms of that. So all of these are, in my opinion, the same type of formula, for lack of a better word: copy, repeat, and recycle. Now, does it work? Absolutely, it works. It made a lot of money. We'll get to that towards the end of the podcast about how much money is being made and how effective that it really is. So I'm not saying that it doesn't work. It's just that we're seeing a pattern when it comes to Tom Cruise films: Top Gun, Color of Money, and Cocktails. And now we see that same segment when it comes here to Days of Thunder. So what happens in Days of Thunder? All these elements are present in the entertainment environment, but it's also a very predictable film, if you will. The craft in this case is stock car racing. His mentor is played by Robert Duvall, who is an age or a veteran racing team leader. We also have the superior woman, who's played by Nicole Kidman, who's a doctor, and she is attracted to this raw energy and hero, if you will, but forces him to kind of grow up in the process. The arena that he has to do all this is also obviously on the track in terms of that. His enemy is Rowdy, played by Michael Rooker, who challenges the hero to drag racing duels, including one that winds them both up in the hospital in the film. There's some funny parts into it with when he's fighting against Rowdy, and one of those is the fact that they're racing. Everything's a competition with these guys, and one of them is they're going to dinner because they're basically going to be getting a lecture from the head of NASCAR, and what happens is they've just been in Iraq. They've been summoned to this meeting, to this dinner, and basically not only are they racing with their cars to get there, but also with the wheelchairs inside the hospital, who's going to get out first, etc. So all this kind of adds up. There's some kind of entertaining moments in there, but again, and I just want to circle around and circle back to this formula that seems to be working for Tom Cruise. So, Days of Thunder, it was directed by Tony Scott. He was the same man who started this whole cycle by directing Top Gun as well. And so this film is just like in Top Gun, where it was a fast pace, some very great photography, filming with very powerful and fast machines. You've got airplanes, fighting jets in one, and you got stock cars or cars in the other. They're very fast, and there's some great shots that make this film work, especially some very close-ups with the drivers in the car, and they're side swiping each other and their opponents, trying to push them into the wall, have them wreck, because it's all about. I would even say it's all about the money. It's about winning in terms of that. So we have Randy Quaid. He is a used car dealer who has faith in this kid that he's brought up through the ranks. And at the very beginning, Robert Duvall's character, who's the veteran, really has doubt, doesn't know if he has what it takes, but soon kind of grows to love the character as well. We talked about Nicole Kidman has little to do as a love interest and does not make much of an impression, in my opinion, in the film. She is there, but she's not a very key element in the film. But if you take her out and you don't have that, I think it really hurts the movie. So she doesn't bring a ton of value to the film. But again, if you take her out, there's something that is kind of lost in the film. So a very important, powerful add to the film was with Nicole Kidman in terms of that, and her character of what she brings to the film in terms of that. So that's kind of a quick overview when it comes to Days of Thunder and what I really thought of the film. Like I said, I think it's important to know that a lot of these are just copy and repeat, in my opinion, in terms of that. So, for what it's worth. Now I want to talk a little bit about some of the characters in the film. One that sticks out in my mind that made an impression on me. Not only was it Tom Cruise, because I think he's very solid. I talk a little bit about Nicole Kidman not having that type of power on there. Robert Duvall, I think, plays a very powerful individual that kind of brings calm and levity to the film. And you need somebody like him to really justify the film, if I can use those in those words. I think you could tell that Robert Duvall is his star power. I think he, and this is my opinion, watching the film, I haven't read this, I have no idea if this is true, but I also find that I think he knows that this film was kind of beneath him, and that his acting skills and ability are more than is needed for this film, if you will. But by taking him out of it and adding somebody else, I just can't imagine somebody else doing that. So he brings a little bit of calm, and he brings a little star power to the film as well. Michael Rooker, who plays Rowdy Burns, his enemy on the track, I thought he did a wonderful job bringing that character and that intensity to the film. I think probably him and Cruise played off of one another very well and really brought a lot of power and stability to this film that was kind of crazy and a little bit of a far-fetched film at times, but like I said, really gets the job done. Randy Quaid, who plays the owner, every time I think of Randy Quaid, I'm thinking of Christmas Vacation, but he brings a very serious performance to this instead of a comedy side. He brings more of a drama appeal to it, and I think he does a wonderful job as well. And then Big Fred Thompson, just with his command, he plays the part very well of NASCAR's boss or chief in this. Now, if I want to kind of analyze this film with other films, I had to stop and think about this for a few minutes. So bear with me as I kind of go through some of these. The first one that came to my mind was Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby from 2006. The film Days of Thunder is a drama, where this Talladega Nights is more of a comedy take on the stock car racing world. As many of you know, it was starring Will Ferrell. Night and day type of film. I think Days of Thunder was trying to be more serious, more of a drama, where obviously Talladega Nights was more of a comedy and kind of making fun, if you will, of the stock car world. And I know it was very much loved by and has a cult following of that. Another one that comes to mind is Rush from 2013. That's a biography drama about the rivalry between Formula One drivers in this film. Now, I would be the first one to want to point out that you cannot compare Formula One to stock car, IndyCar racing. I get it. I know that as a racing fan. But it's about racing, not so much Formula One versus NASCAR in terms of that. Something a little bit more recent from 2019, Ford versus Ferrari. This really tells the true story of an American automotive designer, Carlo Shelby, and driver Ken Miles, as they build a race car for the Ford Motor Company to compete against Ferrari. As you can imagine, again, another drama, kind of night and day, because we're dealing with Formula One versus stock car. But Ford Motor Company is no stranger to stock car or IndyCar racing, so I want to put it in there. Then we kind of go back into the archives from 1966 Grand Prix. It's a classic film that followed the lives of several Formula One drivers during a season. James Garner is in that. Like I said, I hate, or I shouldn't say hate, I don't like bringing in Formula One in stock car, because those are two different styles of racing, two different styles of cars. I get it for those that are racing fanatics. I get it in terms of that. But again, it's a movie about racing, something I would encourage you to look up. And then Le Mans from 1971. It stars Steve McQueen. The focus is on the 24 hours of Le Mans endurance race. If you haven't seen that one, between that and the Grand Prix, I definitely would invite you to see both of those. Grand Prix 1966, Le Mans 1971, starring Steve McQueen. So those are some different films that kind of quickly came to mind when I think and was watching Days of Thunder, and just kind of going back in my mind of some films in terms of that. What would I say? The good, the bad, and the ugly of this film, and how would I rate this? Well, I'll give you my rating at the very end before we sign off. But, one of the things that I think worked in this film was some of the cinematography that was shot within this film. I thought it was very good. And I think for the most part, I think he did a pretty good job of trying to give an early look or inside look at stock car racing in terms of this. Now, one thing that I don't think I mentioned at the very beginning, the writers were Robert Downey and Tom Cruise. It was his attempt at writing for a film, and I think overall did a pretty good job. There's some things in there that I think were made for film, for the entertainment value But overall, I thought it did a pretty good job of depicting what it was like, especially in the earlier years. Now, in 2025, I think it's a little different when it comes to stock cars and how sponsors and the technology. You're probably not in somebody's barn. You're actually at a state-of-the-art facility where people are testing, working year-round. In terms of that, now a lot of these stock car teams have 7 or 8 backup cars, and they have different cars for different tracks. It kind of alluded to that in the film as well, but you don't get a really good picture. You have to really be a student of the film to really understand that, and to get a lot of that comprehension in terms of that. So the dialogue at times was a little weak. I think Nicole Kidman's character could have been a little stronger. I think she was just there to be there because they needed a love interest. And I think if you didn't have that, it doesn't work. But I think it kind of works, but it would have been, at the end of the day, I think it could have been a little stronger in terms of that. A little bit about the box office. So the budget, from what I could find out, was estimated at about $60 million. Opening weekend in the U.S. and Canada, it made roughly $15.4 million at the box office. Like I said, opening weekend, U.S. and Canada. Worldwide, gross in the U.S. and Canada was about $82.6 million, and the gross worldwide, 157.9, almost 158 million. In terms of that, runtime is an hour and 47 minutes. In that, for the most part, filming was done in Daytona Beach, Florida. Paramount and Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer films were the production companies of that. Release date was June the 27th, 1990 was the official release on that. In terms of that, it nominated for 1 Oscar. So it was nominated for Best Sound in the 91 Academy Awards. Oscar, it did not win. BMI Film and TV Awards, it was the winner for Film Music Award in 1991 in terms of that. So a little bit of recognition for the film in terms of that. So one of the things I always like to do before we wrap it up is kind of give you a little bit of trivia. Hopefully you find this as interesting or fascinating as we do when it comes to these films. So production began without a finished script. Scenes were often written the day of filming, and during one driving sequence, Tom Cruise actually had to raid his line off cue cars that were attached to the windshield that did cause a minor wreck. At Daytona for the final race of the movie, Gentlemen Start Your Engines is the voice of Burt Reynolds in there. The movie was conceived by Tom Cruise when he and Paul Newman were allowed to test one for Rick Hendrick's racing cars. Tom's first lap was in excess of 180 miles per hour. The scenes where Cole and Rowdy destroy a pair of rental cars by racing them through the city streets loosely reference early 1950s NASCAR superstars Joe Weatherly and Curtis Turner, each of whom were best known for rent cars, race them, and crash them with that. In another scene, Trickle is told he can't pit because the crew is too busy eating ice cream. This incident actually occurred at the 1987 Southern 500 involving Hendrick's Motor Sports 35 team with crew chief Henry Hyde and Richmond's replacement driver, Benny Parsons. Real-life Hendrick's Motor Sports pit crew member Mike Saltry served as an extra for Cole's crew. Let's see here. The film's disappointment box office performances was responsible for destroying the relationship between Paramount and super producers Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer. All the cars used in the movie for the race had to pass inspection and qualify. Bob Hamilton qualified one of the movie cars in the top 10. They removed the camera and he was allowed to enter the race with that. See here. Tom Cruise and Robert Duvall's character are very loosely based on former driver Tim Richmond, and his crew chief Harry Hyde. See here. NASCAR driver Greg Sachs did most of the Tom Cruise stunt driving. Cruise wanted to do his own stunt driving, but wasn't allowed for insurance reasons. Okay. According to Dale Earnhardt Jr., Tom Cruise had a meeting with Dale Sr. prior to the production of the film. It was rumored that Earnhardt was offered the role of Rowdy Burns, but he turned it down because he didn't want to play the bad guy. See here. Cruise and Kurt Russell for the role of Rowdy Burns, Tom Cruise wanted Kurt Russell for Rowdy's position. It was thought that Cruise thought Russell became aware of a backdraft in 1991. See here. Tom Cruise's character Cole Trickle was a salute to Dick Trickle. Trickle died in May 16, 2013 from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Okay. Cruise received a speeding ticket for doing 85 in a 55-mile-an-hour zone while working on this movie. Many real-life NASCAR drivers, including Rusty Wallace, appeared in the film. I just give you a couple more. One of the few PG-13 rated movies permitted to use the word word fuck in a sexual content. And let's see here. Cruise and Robert Duvall worked together again many years later in Jack Reacher in 2012. So, just a little bit when it comes to some trivia. There's a lot more, but just kind of hitting some of the highlights when it comes to Days of Thunder. Well, I want to think, before we get to the wrap-up, what would I give this? I think on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, I would give this a 7. Because it does work for Tom Cruise, even though I would maybe seemed a little harsh at the beginning where he's copy and repeat, or paste and repeating on a lot of these. They work for him for so many years, and so I really can't fault somebody for finding a rhythm and kind of going with it. So for that, my hat's off to him in terms of that. But again, the storyline, some of the dialogue, I think could have been a little bit stronger. But overall, I'm going to give this film a 7 out of 10 from 1990, Days of Thunder, starring Tom Cruise. If you haven't seen it in a while, I would encourage you to go back and rewatch it. Or if you're a big Cruise fan and just haven't seen it, it's definitely worth you watching for the first time if you haven't seen it. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of the Complete Works Podcast. Be sure to like this episode and subscribe for future episodes. You'll find FilmBook on all major social media networks. Give us a follow. You can find more of my work on FilmBook's official website, which is film-book.com. Just search for Doug Hess with the Complete Works. You can also find me on Twitter at HessDoug14 or on Instagram at HessDoug14 as well. Tune in next time when I review and analyze the next Tom Cruise film. Thank you for listening, and we will see you then.
Thanks for listening to The Complete Works. Find more of The Complete Works on FilmBook, on your favorite podcast service, and on YouTube.